Nana Akomaa Kyerematen. Y'all did it!
Thank you so much, Amanda, for the kind introduction. Even though, yeah, right. The name and which one do I press to get to the next one? Okay.
You can press this one.
Okay. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, thank you so much, Amanda, for the introduction. I thank Mona Lisa, Eileen, bringing me to the Mothers for Justice and Equality. I have been very honored. It didn't take much long at all until Mona Lisa said, Hannah, I want to invite you to the board. And it has been a wonderful experience. I first want to say that yesterday I was feeling a little nervous, and I did get my Bible reading, being brought up in the Christianity in Africa, a very spiritual continent, and holds more Christians, and that we let hope and the faith in God keep us going. A lot of problems we have had, and so my spiritual sense is always with me, and that I did my prayers, and the text for the day for me was, be not dismayed. Whatever betide God will take care of you. Beneath his wings of love abide. God will take care of you. And then the Bible passage says, our Lord, he is the one who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. Do not fear, nor be dismayed. And this spiritual message, anytime I feel down for some reason, it seems like something triggers, and suddenly I get uplifted. I have always been very honored, and as we come from other parts of the world to the United States, it is the nation you want to go to. I remember when I first arrived in college, December 1974, and this guy who became my friend goes like, Hannah, welcome to the nation. So he just put that emphasis on to America. And I said, I'm very honored. I'm very grateful to my family for sponsoring my education. And I really feel a blessing. So over the course of time, as I lived in this great nation, right from the beginning, romanticizing with America, the freeway system, the technology, the high rise, and the fine college I was in, I just was enjoying the pleasure of it. And then I first arrived in a small school. My parents wanted me to go to a Christian school, and there was a school in Riverside, California called Loma Linda University. And I couldn't help before classes started. I couldn't help because I was just looking around, sit in the school shuttle. It brings us to the mall. I keep looking around day in, day after for my first 2 weeks. And then within a couple of months, I went to go shopping after classes. And normally when I do that, I come back for the rest of the evening, do my homework, and stuff like that. So I went into the supermarket, and as it says here, I arrived in America full of admiration for its promise, only to discover a widespread lack of awareness about the rest of the world, particularly Africa. But the negativity or the negative stereotypes were what I heard every time. My first class was in a communications class at Loma Linda University. And the first question the person asked me, one tall white guy got up and said, Miss Hannah, it's great. For me, this is the first time I'm meeting someone from Africa. So in Africa, do you have 4 walls like this? And I said, I smiled. I didn't know what to say, but it's just that I smiled because I wasn't ready to blame. I just felt like this is how the education has been. And as time went on, I felt it like it's more like indoctrination. And so when she asked me that, here I am coming from a fine boarding school, and my family works hard. They have get me ready to come and do college in America. And the first question that he asked is like, we had this in pieces when we are in Africa, but this is the first time I'm really getting that direct. Do you have 4-wall buildings? And so I didn't get upset, but it started to make me think. Then 2 months later, I went to the shopping mall. The school shuttle dropped us off. Some of the trainings they gave us once the school year began is, especially for international students, be careful, watch around yourself when you're walking alone. And it's just that I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it because so far things are just running smoothly. Then as I went to the mall that day, I've got a few things I needed, and I was, crossing from one end to the other. As I walked towards the other side of the mall, something hit me to turn around. And I turned around, and there was this guy with, the hair is disheveled, had his eyes open, walking fast towards me. Immediately, I run. And when I get to the other end of the shopping mall, I swung. The door opened, went right into the first shop. And this guy followed. I said, please help me, please help me. And the store owner and everybody came outside. And man, when they saw that guy, right at the mall, stood there looking straight into the store at me. And the woman said, oh my God. She says, you're not gonna go anywhere. You're gonna stay here. As I just arrived from Ghana, and of course, she has no idea what Ghana is. So I said, from Africa. And then what happened was, then at that time, we waited for a while. It didn't take long did I see and some of the students coming into the same store. And they said, Hannah, what happened? At the time, I had not have my maiden name. Hannah, what happened? I said, there's this guy scaring. Almost could have hurt me. So anyway, I went back to the campus with them safely. And the school gave us more training. I later find out that Riverside, California is one of the most dangerous cities in the United States. And so I said to myself, oh my God, all that glitters in gold. Because here I am looking at all these fantastic material things that really impressed me. I kept buying. And then chances are my life could have been taken away. And that, can you imagine, you're talking about losing a child. What would have happened to my parents? For 2 weeks in America, then their loving daughter is suddenly possibly married. Then, so I stayed at Loma Linda. I transferred to University of Southern California, and everything went fine for me in California. I graduated, then I went for middle school education moved to Massachusetts with my partner, who at the time he has got accepted to Harvard School of Dentistry, and said, I'm not gonna leave you behind. I'm bringing you with me to Massachusetts. So I came to Tufts University, and then, thank you. And then it was fine. One fall morning, actually after school, I was having toothache. I've seen a dentist earlier, and I was stopping by CVS near the school campus to pick up my medication. I picked up my medication, okay. I walked outside by the street, and as I was walking, I realized that I was probably alone on the street. And it wasn't too far from the school. It's just College Avenue, right into where my dormitory is. Then I saw these two young people screaming out of nowhere. And they just said, hey, we want your bag. We want your bag. And immediately, I can't even remember how I threw away my pocketbook to them, run, cross the street, and literally stopping the cars. Please, please. Then suddenly one car tried to stop, then a couple approached. I said, the kids are holding knife at me. And immediately they threw back my pocketbook and ran away. They were about 12, 14 years old, two of them, white boys. And I immediately, one of the men, the couple, drove me and dropped me off right at the dorm. I told the school started to really have meetings and said, listen, in Medford, Massachusetts, where you are is safe. Once in a while, things do happen, still watch out. So my point here is that I came to America and everything was fine. For a long time, I got my fine education, but then I've had experiences of possible being, murdered, experiences of pain, people suffering, watching the news every time, and then, being in the field I wanted to be in. My family wanted me to be a dentist. I got accepted, all right, dental school. I said, no, that's not what I want. I want my ex-husband, at the time my husband, his heart was broken. I said, I want to work in the community. I'm having these dreams. I love my public health education. I love my mental education. I want to work in the inner city. I don't like disparities. I want to see what I can do to help. And so over the course of time, having had the opportunity to do a lot of things, also work with NAACP, there's a sense that came to me that I was looking for social justice. And so I thought about a lot of things. I engaged in different organizations, and later on with MJE, I worked for years in the inner city, mental health needs. I realized that when I was first employed at Department of Public Health, you would think that most of the social issues we have are more within minorities, so I would see more of my colleagues. It is like a whole huge floor. I was the only Black employee there, and this is the state of Massachusetts. So I look at it and I say, this is still representative. And so, but it kept me going. And then I went to Department of Mental Health, the same thing. And then there was a department that I worked in, Solomon Carter Fuller. It is the only facility in Massachusetts for mental health services that was named after Dr. Solomon Carter Fuller. He actually co-discovered Alzheimer's, but because of his skin color, he was a black physician, the first black psychiatrist in America. His contribution was not recognized at the time. Okay. Was not recognized at the time, okay. But I get very involved, not only as clinician, but also with the diversity team. It didn't take long until the center made me to lead the diversity team. So we had meetings. But I'm mentioning this because I was experiencing a lot in America, opportunities, but at the same time, I saw the disparities. My professors in graduate school were researchers. They give us the figures. I started to think beyond the surface to see America how it is. So somebody may wonder, why do you write such a book, The Constitutional Contradiction? I wrote the book after witnessing life as it is, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's everywhere you go. But then if you look at a nation that says, I lead the world, I'm the most powerful, I'm setting a great example for democracy, then you get these experiences, disparities. My professors, some of them even love Castro. They love Cuba. I'm talking about the 80s when I was doing my master's degree, because they said when they visited those countries, Cuba had a good standard of living. You see, public health is looking at distribution of wealth, wellness, resources, and that epidemiology. When you study epidemiology, the causes and distribution of illnesses, and they tie that in directly to the economy. And so you look at communities of poverty, there are more issues. You look around the world, the suffering, the poverty, 80%, my professors told the class, of the world's resources are controlled by the US and Europe. And so, which is 18% of the world's population. The rest of us, 70 or 80 or more, can only access 20% of the world's resources. So no wonder you see poverty in these developing nations. At the same time, you can also see that they were contributing to the resources of the United States, of Europe. And we all know that the slave labor gave trillions and trillions to build America. The developing nations. Yesterday, as Ms. Ronia was talking, she said, let's look at things globally, because everything ties in together. And indeed, she couldn't have said it better. That's what I have noticed. And I wanted America to see more of the positive aspects of other countries, how we contribute. Like, say, 60% of our vegetables are coming from, 60% is coming from Mexico. In Ghana and Ivory Coast, the next country, we are the world's chief producers of cocoa beans, the significant ingredient for making chocolate, America's favorite dessert. And yet when Hershey, Nestle, when they are there in Africa, in Ghana, they have all these plantations of cocoa growth. They control 88% of the profits, and only 12% goes to Ghana or to Ivory Coast. How did they stand on their feet economically to develop themselves? So you just can't say, hey, probably those leaders don't know how to govern themselves. But you govern with what is necessary to govern, money. The Bible says we shouldn't have so much love for money, but that is what the world is about, is how much you have and how much control you have. And I wish the news media can sometimes bring this into the daily narratives, that we are grateful and lucky to be in America and have a huge country, but do we look deeper what is happening? The double standards, the corporations controlling these poor nations, taking their resources, they are not benefiting. And it all comes into the United States Treasury. And the United States Treasury at this point is net worth 24 trillion. If you look at Congo, the whole of the African continent is endowed with raw materials. So we're taking our cell phone, we take it for granted, the cobalt, the copper, everything is coming from the continent. And yet, cobalt alone is worth 34 trillion in Congo, which is far beyond America's net worth. But who are they controlling with power? The big corporations. And now we have China. China visits African presidents almost every month to get the resources to build China. And we don't take this into consideration that the countries or the citizens from these countries that our president is so determined to send back to their countries, we make them poor. And if people are poor, they're gonna come to where they will get food to eat. So they are at the borders. So as we do our work and we become more and more diverse, these people are coming with their stories. Our suffering is telling their stories. So with this in mind, that is why I wrote, I think, like one of our Pastor Schuler used to say, think always. Every day in America is like a think time for me. I watch what is happening, the experiences, my interaction with people. You listen to the news media, they don't get things quite right. It's always talking about the super nations, America, Europe, China. What about all these other countries? Who are the ones supplying with our raw materials, cheap labor, suffering, and yet they're struggling to work? With all this wealth that the U.S. have, it still took U.S. 250 years to get to where we are. So we need to give a break to these developing nations that they will get there too. It's only a matter of time. So I look at it, how can these disparities really come about? And my professors helped me. They gave me more and more insight. They tried to help the class to solve critical questions. And I'm always very much involved in it. So eventually I said, let's look at the Constitution itself. And so that is why okay. So I opened, I'm trying to say the history. African history or the histories of other cultures were never taught in our classroom as such, as part of the core program. I grew up in Ghana. Right from first grade, the Europeans said, learn our language, learn English. The Europeans taught us about European inventions, Elizabethan age, Galileo, Plato, and all that. Nothing of our history to give us a sense of belonging. But when we got independence, the leaders, our new leaders, freedom fighters, Kwame Nkrumah for Ghana, made sure that the school curriculum changed. We learn our history. We learn, not that we neglect European history, but we learn our own, who we are, African empire, starting with Ghana, Mali, Songhai. They were all, when you think about learning centers like Timbuktu, it's a great learning center 600 years ago. And it all gives us a sense of purpose. I realize that African Americans don't have as much. The regular American doesn't have this informational background. And it drains into the press. The press does not give a report, like saying, oh, the United Nations Secretary General died, and his name was Kofi Annan. She happened to be from Ghana, the first black to head the United Nations. When he died, and I was listening to the news, oh, Kofi Annan died, that was it. They wouldn't say Kofi Annan was from Ghana. And listen, folks, when you eat your chocolate, think about Ghana. That is where these kids are working, harvesting, and they probably go home with no roof over their head. Meanwhile, every year, you hear in January, you hear Hershey, Nestle, how they've made billions and billions. If you were to give 1 billion of the 10 billion they make to Ghana, it would be like a life changer. And so I turn it all down to the Constitution. The Constitution did not recognize us, some of us, as we were not even human. So I said, we have history. The kid who asked me that question, do you have 4 words like this? Not only that, so what is the African? What is your history? Well, we have history. History is not a Western invention, but a human inheritance. So I coined this statement, and I want to have patency to it, so that it is something that I'm using to make my point. And so I wrote this Constitution to really say that nothing in the world is grained in stone. Everything has an end by change. Probably we need to pay more and more attention to the Constitution, the message that is delivered. This shows a little bit about my background, and that people are already familiar with the work that I do. One of the things that I want to stress is I worked with the Lost Boys from Sudan for over 11 years. They came as refugees. The Sudan War, like many of the wars we are seeing around us, went on for 11 years. And that when they came as refugees, I mean, they were running away from their villages where they have been scattered, the bombs and the guns flying, and eventually the United Nations and the US made a pact that this case needs to be saved. And once they got here, they were all on the news in 2000, and I saw Americans reaching out to them, and I said, where are the Africans? So I called, because Sudan is African, it's #1 African issue, even though we are trapped into the world system of politics. The First World War, Second World War, Africans, which the war was not their wars, were all constricted into the army. 250,000 of them, none of them came back. And so we need to really look at the world as we see it today. Our democracy are we really setting the right example for democracy? So I said, things that may glitter may not necessarily be gold. I questioned the US Constitution and its contradiction because, right from very beginning, the fathers described the African slaves as 3/5 of human beings. Even though we had later on, Lincoln worked very hard but cautiously to bring up emancipation, it still took a while for us to be fully accepted, and we're still not fully, many African Americans, many developing nations, they don't find themselves as free yet. So I bring this point just to make why I wrote such a book. I would really advise that people take a look at it. It is a book of history, African history. This country's foundation is black and white. Why are we just only focusing on one way, European history? Do it our way. We have to look at it also at doing it other cultures' ways, because we all tie in together. We are all human beings. We live and we die. There is nothing gonna say, oh, you are the president of the United States, so you're gonna live forever. We have to recognize our how the impermanence of our lives. What kind of legacy, like yesterday, Mona Lisa mentioned about legacy. What are we as a body of the world together? The Bible, and Jesus Christ, he came as a rebel. the Jewish doctrine says they know much more about everything else. The Torah, the Old Testament is saying it. Christ says, I came with the New Testament. He noticed the lack of morality in our behaviors. And the New Testament said the old is gone and the new has come. And the new has come, we have to take a look at our Constitution as well. And so the 3/5 compromise was exposed the nation's struggle between democratic ideals that we have and the dehumanization it legally endorsed. And I also look at the consequences of ignorance. If as much as we praise and admire our nation founders, the framers, to me, form a nation, but they did not necessarily unite us together as into our common humanity. And I feel that if they had been able to learn African history just as we learn European history and see contributions from all different sides of our existence, we can respect each other, and that ignorance, the consequence of ignorance breeds prejudice, and prejudice sustains discrimination. A society uninformed about others' histories, lasting contributions, and struggles risk repeating the same injustices that it claimed to reject. And so we look, still for me, I wrote this book. I want people to read them, to really think deeply, from the civil rights movement to Alice's heartfelt plea. That's my second book, Delivering Alice's Message. Alice was a church member, and before Alice died, when the time I was in the church of Nazarene, where I ran into a pastor who invited me to their church. That is after graduate school. I'm talking about around 87. And that I started attending the church. Alice was one of the elderly who greeted us into the church every Sunday. And then one day, he just came. I thought Alice was really having some kind of some critical, was in a fit, and say, Hannah, I need to speak to you. I had a dream. And I said, Alice, are you okay? Alice, what can I do to help you? She said, no. You cannot help me. But I'm asking you, Hannah, I see you colored girls come to the church, and you colored children. You are well-educated, you are fine, you are disciplined. I don't know what I saw in the South. Oh, Marie, my friend Marie. I don't know whatever happened to Marie. And I said, who is Marie? She says, we were in a nursing school together. We were nursing. Hannah, you have to know, I'm 87 years old. I have seen the world. I knew how Alabama raised me. I knew what I saw. I don't know. Marie was the smartest in the class of nursing students, and yet Marie had to eat alone in the kitchen, and all of us were in the cafeteria, comfortable. When she gets higher grade than I know I did, she wasn't recognized for it. And that she dreams about Marie. But Hannah, do me a favor. I want to ask you my question. I said, Alice, what's the question? And then eventually she says, Hannah, I've come to realize why this may not become uncomfortable, but we need to sometimes face the uncomfortable truth. Why? Why is my race, this is a white woman, my race, the white race hates the black race so much? Why? What did you guys ever do? Why? What did I saw things happening? And I just can't sleep, Hannah, before I die, pass on the message and how America can become a much better America and give everybody opportunity. And I said, Alice, I'm only like 30, 30 something. I don't even know. She said, no, no, no. Go to the press. Go to the news media. Tell them that Alice, I said that they should shut off all soap operas and show Roots every day to America. And I said, I was baffled. I didn't know what is, all that I did is hug my dear Alice to myself, hugged her tightly, and I said, I understand, Alice, but you know, there's a lot of complexity to it. He said, well, probably you can do it now, but make sure that after I'm gone, get into the news media, the producers, the directors, be bold. Hannah, do you promise? Do you promise? So this is my story. This is all adding to my drive to eventually write this book. My love for America is sincere. I'm appreciative for the good teachers I got, the good education. It brought me to a higher horizon of thinking, seeing different people, their issues. But when things we hold together, so we look at the voices of conscience. Dr. King, as he embodied the civil rights movement, the moral courage that he really pushed to us to really let America take a look at this economic vision for everybody, equality. Even President Lincoln at the time, realizing there was something wrong and that slavery was purely evil, still had to be cautious. He's described as having a great sense of humor. He wanted to get the South to align with him, to cut off what it shouldn't be in the first place. And I've always asked myself, had the early president really thought about sending a commission to Africa to engage with the Africans and see the palaces and the empires? Will they have still dragged human beings to that extent into this nation for what historians describe to America to face degradation and cruelty? And of course, a lot has changed. Of course, many African Americans, I still see African American story as a success story. I posted something on Facebook recently, and the response was huge. That, you know, we never let the African spirit die. We didn't let the crown of our dignity to fall. We keep trying, and the trauma is amazing and long-term standing. And organizations like this help. My work in the inner city, really getting a mother, say in Dorchester, I would be paid to go to Dorchester to talk to a family in crisis. And that would say I have already gone to another place, to Andover. And I get to Andover, and this child having a problem has been adopted from Colombia, and by this rich white American family in Andover. And Andover is a very comfortable, you know, wealthy city. Then right from there, I'm paged, Hannah, when you get to Boston, please go to Dorchester. And I get to Dorchester, and I knock on the door. I was looking around. Meanwhile, most of my Department of Social Services colleagues wouldn't come to Dorchester. So I went, and I went regularly. And they gave me many cases, Haitian, African-American cases. I love it because I thought cultural competency is missing. It's missing from the Constitution. It makes us cast double standard to the Constitution itself. And that is what has controlled everything to today. So the disparities we see today, even as of last week or 2 weeks ago, when they published unemployment rate in America, it is 4.1% for white America, 7.3% for blacks, particularly black women, that they've lost their jobs. We have always looked up to the federal government programs to show some kind of justice. And yet the executive orders has thrown most of them out of business. And so it is a challenging time. So when I write this, I'm not here to say I'm criticizing America. I'm just saying we all share a common humanity. And like one of these advocate people, I don't know whether any of you know about Jane Elliott. Jane Elliott said, I'm a white woman, but we've been indoctrinated to see people in the hierarchy of our human worthiness, and we need to do something about it. It's the same outcome from Dr. King, it's the same outcry from Alice, and it's the same outcry for what we're doing now, that we're bringing us together for healing, for the pain, for the losses. And so I continue to do, we all continue to do a little bit, that eventually, if we can reach towards Dr. King's famous saying, the beloved community, and economic justice for all, that is what the voices should be raised for, and for genuine freedom to be felt by all Americans. So this concludes my topic on the book Constitutionality. It is key. I write letters, and anytime the media gives these narratives, I turn on the narratives, you see people flaunting in their riches, the artists. Yes, I like the artists, I like movies, but why is money concentrated into one hand? Corporations, a few of us, and many suffering. Why is it that we don't mobilize enough? And we're still trying, that's what we're doing here, but it's a big task, much layered. It takes time, it takes responsibility, it takes a sense of the moral compass to guide us. And at this point, there is a second piece that I wanted to discuss, but I think if people may have questions, I will just have a few minutes for people to have, as far as looking at my message through my book, and as far as how it binds all of us together, to take a look at our great Constitution that has been guiding this nation for 250 years. Independence was reached in 1776, but women couldn't vote until 1920, and Black Americans couldn't vote until in the 60s, 1964. Meanwhile, in Ghana, we have one man, one vote. Everybody could vote in 1957. So some of these countries may be poor nations, but they may even be more democratic than we think. And also in the mental health field, I want us to take a look at some of these societies that we may look down upon and see how their mental health status. Tropical Africa is always deemed the least of mental illness. What are the values that poor nations like that, what are they practicing? How is it that we, as poor as the inner city Ghana is, and yet you don't see kids holding guns, killing each other off? We need to put this in perspective. We need to recognize our common worthiness and our common humanity. Thank you. And if any questions, I think what I would do is, with all due respect to Mona Lisa and MJE, if I could, give them my next session, another time. But for now,
they can come to you,
okay.
Up to you and ask you.
Okay, sure. Okay, they can come up. Yeah. So, Amanda, if anybody have questions or any curiosity, And again, I just talking about this book because it ties in directly, indirectly to what we're doing. Eventually, is trying to be guided by the moral compass. And my experiences, as I've narrated it briefly, because there's far more, and I feel like this is how I release some of my stress, writing, sharing, and the good old African proverb, it takes a village. You share, you join with others. When I'm depressed, or in my African language, there is not even a word for depression. When you are down, you talk with family members. The kids play around outside. And so there is much we can learn from each other. So thank you all for this opportunity.
All right, thank you, thank you. Is that, just hold a picture and tell them that you have it for sale.
Yeah, I had the book at the facility. In the paperback, like this one, is $25. It can be ordered from Amazon, but Amazon would take most of the money if you order from them. And so if you can buy it directly, there are copies out there, and that also the hardcover is $35. And believe me, the knowledge you will get from this, the learning that we all need to acknowledge each other's worthiness. So suffering, pain, killing, wars can all be put to rest one way or the other. That is what the moral compass should lead us all on. Knowledge is power, and ignorance breeds discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody say thank you, Nana.